So welcome back guys. We've seen how we can actually work with our forms, but in this video we're going to be looking at database. Now what are database? Basically database are collection of data where you save your data. You can have different definition for database. Now for me, database is where I save my data, and whenever I need those data I just go there and retrieve those informations from a database. Simple as that. So for PHP, we're going to be using MySQL database. So that's why I asked you to actually install XAMPP, because it's going to give you PHP and it's actually going to be giving you MySQL database. So if you install PHP independently, that means you using the command line to actually run everything. You might want to install MySQL. It all depends on you. But for now, we're going to be going to our XAMPP control panel. And right here, we're going to click on admin, and this will open our PHP my admin, which is like the interface for the database. So let's just wait for that to load. So right here, we're going to create our database right now that we're going to be using for this application. So just come over here and click new, and this will be let's just give it a name, the database name. So this will be PHP beginner. We can now actually go ahead and create tables. Now see your database like a tree and the table like branches on the tree. So this is actually the idea that MongoDB use, seeing your database as a tree and your table as branch. So that's actually what MongoDB does. MySQL database is actually a SQL database. What I mean by this is it actually operates by the rules of rows and columns. Unlike MongoDB, where you actually have your database in a non-SQL form, this actually runs on rows and columns. And as we work more on database, you're going to understand most of these things. So let's just go ahead and create a table. So for our table, I want to have a table called users, and I want to have about 2 columns. Let's just say 3 columns. Now the first column will be an ID, and this ID I want to set it to auto increment. That means whenever a data is being saved into this table, the ID will increase by 1. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to have a name, and the next thing I want to do is have a sex. So I'm working with this form. So I'm creating the database table to correspond with what I have on this form. For example, if I have an extra field called phone number, I'm going to create the column right here. So for the data type for this name is going to be a voucher, and I'm going to give it a length of 200. Now if the length of the string is more than 200, this is going to throw an error. So for this I'm going to have about 10. So let's just click enter to actually create this table. Now you can see we have this table right here, and if we should browse, this table is empty. You can see return an empty result. So let's just go ahead and see how we can save our information that we're getting here into this table. So to actually do this, the first thing we need to do is have some kind of connection between our PHP application and our database. So to do this, we're going to write a very simple connect code. This is actually very simple. There's no need to panic. It's actually very simple, and I'm going to make it as simple as possible. So let's just go ahead and create that now. So I'm back to the Virtual Studio Code, and right here we can now create the connection between our application and the database we just created. So to do this, let us create a new file, and I'm actually going to call this db, which means database. You can call this file name anything you want, .php. And right here, I'm just going to do open the PHP tag. And mind you, there are thousands, probably more than one way to do this. But I'll actually look at all those ways, and I'll see that this way is actually the simplest way to actually connect your application with the database. So right here, let's just go ahead and create um, and and actually connect our application. So right here, I want to have a variable, and I'll call this the variable SonarWap. You can call it whatever name you want. So I'm going to use the MySQLite object. So I'm going to say new MySQLite. You can see this has actually give me an hint that I need an host name, I need a username, I need a password, I need a database, a port, and a socket. But we're not actually going to be using all this argument. We're just going to be using the ones that are actually important. So let's just go ahead and give this a host name. Our host name is localhost. Then our username is root. Then our password is null, is actually empty. Then the next thing we need to do is the database. You can see it right here because it has underlined it. So the database we just created, which is PHP beginner. Hopefully we got that spelling correct. Let's just check it to make sure. So this is actually PHP. Let's see, PHP beginner. Let's just copy and paste this because we need to actually be sure of the name. And this is all. This is all we need to do. And let's just do if. So if by any chance we have actually got an error while doing this, I want to actually output that error. So there are hundreds of methods you can use within this MySQLite class. Okay, so we're only creating a new instance of that class, and we're actually putting it into this variable. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So let's see MySQL error. So if there is an error in the connection, I want to print out that error. So I told you can print an array because this will actually throw an array. You can print an array with print r, or you can use the printf. So it actually depends on you. So let's just say connection failed, and right here I want to output that error. So connect error. So hopefully this makes sense to you. Let's just go ahead and try that out. So db, you see we're not getting any error. That's because the connection was successful. And if we should change this to a different name, actually this database doesn't exist, so we're going to get an error. You can see unknown database, connection failed. So let's just leave this like this, and let's refresh. You can see we've connected to our database. So I'll see you next video on how you can actually save information into the table we created in our database.